The ultimatum. They came with brilliance in the sky. The first sightings were captured by weather satellites. Massive ships, silent and precise, slipping into Earth's orbit like predatory shadows. Within hours, global communications were overridden. Every screen, every signal, every frequency lit up with a single voice. It wasn't a voice that screamed or threatened. It spoke with calm, mechanical precision, translated perfectly into every major Earth language. This is the Giovanni Empire. Your planet is now under imperial jurisdiction. Surrender your governments and population centers for integration, and you will be spared. Resist, and you will be eradicated. You have 48 hours. The world froze. Inside the UN Emergency Assembly, President Okoro of Nigeria stood silent. Around her, military leaders, scientists, diplomats, all sat in stunned disbelief. On the central screen, a live feed from orbit showed one of the Giovanni vessels, smooth, matte black metal, kilometers long, flanked by smaller ships like an armada of sharks. "What's our move?" asked General Singh, arms crossed. "We stall," Okoro said, her voice steady. "We talk, pretend to consider. Meanwhile, we prepare." "Prepare?" scoffed the French delegate. "Prepare what? These things could reduce half our cities to glass before we blink." Okoro met his gaze. "Then we make sure they bleed for every inch they take." The Empire didn't wait. 26 hours into their deadline, they bombarded Buenos Aires. No warning. No ceremony. A shaft of energy from orbit carved the city into molten ruin. 17 million gone in less than 5 seconds. The Giovanni called it a message. But it wasn't fear they sparked, it was fury. Around the world, lights went dark. The internet fragmented. Civilian networks shut down. People vanished from cities into forests, mountains, underground bunkers. It looked like panic, but it wasn't. It was organization. In Alaska, a retired ranger packed explosives with a team of university students. In Vietnam, old war tunnels lit up with lead rigging and solar generators. Across Africa, drone pilots repurposed agricultural quadcopters into Recon Scouts. Earth was going quiet, but not dead. Admiral Carzel watched the silence from orbit and smiled. "They're cowed," he muttered, brushing his hand along the ship's console. "Primitive minds can't comprehend our superiority." His adjutant, a younger officer with purple skin and uncertain eyes, hesitated. "Permission to speak, sir?" "Granted. I don't think they are broken. I think they are waiting." Carzel laughed. "Let them. When they rise, we'll burn their next city." He turned away from the viewport just as the first encrypted pulse left Earth's surface, too small for their sensors to detect, bouncing between mountain peaks and ocean buoys. A single message. Phase 1 initiated. Death World awakens. Sergeant Dina Morales adjusted the camo netting over her squad sniper nest as the alien transport rumbled through the valley below. The jungle steamed with morning mist, vines dangling like nooses. From orbit, this terrain looked harmless. But Morales knew better. Earth wasn't just home. It was a weapon. "Visual on target," whispered Private Okie, peering through a cracked thermal scope. 3 walkers, 4 infantry drones, and 2 big ones. The big ones were Giovanni shock troops, 8 feet tall, armored, fast, deadly in a straight fight. But this wasn't a straight fight. "Hold until the monkeys move," Morales said. From the treetops, Capuchin monkeys began to shriek, trained weeks earlier to recognize the Giovanni hum. A second later, half a ton of timber crashed down as tripwires snapped and trees fell, crushing the front walker and scattering the drones. Then the shooting started. Elsewhere, similar scenes played out. In the Arctic, an Inuit-led resistance team sabotaged a supply cache by luring hovercraft onto a melting ice shelf. In the ruins of Buenos Aires, surviving civilians built Molotov traps from gas lines and shattered glass. In the Australian outback, feral camels stampeded into a forward base after resistance fighters detonated charges behind them. The invaders struggled. Giovanni armor corroded in Earth's acidic rain. Their aerial drones couldn't fly through tropical storms. And their soldiers, engineered in sterile shipboard labs, were falling sick, allergic to pollen, vulnerable to microbes, hunted by predators they didn't even recognize as threats. Admiral Kazel reviewed the casualty reports in silence. 200 dead in the last 72 hours. Not in battles, but from environmental exposure. How can a pre-spacefaring species be so uncontrolled? He spat, slamming a clawed fist onto the console. The science officer spoke quietly. So, Earth is what the Galactic Survey catalogs classify as a Class 5 death world. High oxygen, high biodiversity, extreme weather volatility. It's considered uncolonizable for most sapient life. And no one thought to check this before we invaded. They were labeled primitive. No threat. Kazel's jaw twitched. They are not fighting like primitives. Back in the jungle, Morales ducked under a branch as plasma fire scorched the bark overhead. Okoye tossed a homemade EMP charge, scrap electronics wrapped in copper wire and stuffed into a soda can. It exploded with a sharp pop, frying the remaining drones mid-air. The big ones roared and charged, but Morales didn't flinch. Now! From behind, a volley of old Natura RPGs slammed into them. Stored for decades, modified last month, fired today. When the smoke cleared, the jungle was silent. Morales exhaled, slow and steady. That's how we do it. Okoye looked at the wreckage. Think they are starting to regret it. Morales grinned. They will. Above them, a Giovanni Recon drone watched, recording. It uploaded the footage before a hawk slammed into it mid-flight and sent it crashing to the forest floor. Nature had picked a side, turning the tide. The lab was deep underground, once a Cold War missile silo, now humanity's most valuable secret. Flickering LED lights lined the ceiling, illuminating the humming chaos of salvaged alien tech, laptop arrays, and soldering smoke. "Power's holding," muttered Rajiv Patel, a software engineer turned resistance hacker. Initializing interface in 3, 2, now. A high-pitched whine filled the chamber as the Giovanni drone on the table jerked to life. Its central eye flickered, scanning its surroundings, then shifted from red to blue. "We've got control," Patel grinned. Around him, the room burst into applause. Across the globe, resistance cells were linking up. Salvaged Giovanni tech, weapons, drones, armor, was being reverse-engineered in basements and bunkers. Humanity didn't need to match the Empire's power. They just had to steal it. In Germany, hackers broke into the Giovanni battlenet and rerouted a supply drop into the Baltic Sea. In South Korea, engineers turned disabled hoverbikes into remote-controlled suicide drones. In Brazil, medics learned how to override Giovanni biolocks, saving injured resistance fighters by using captured medkits. The tide wasn't just turning. It was rising. They called the mission Operation Mirafang. From a repurposed radio tower in Montana, encrypted commands were broadcast across the globe. Patel's team coordinated strikes with terrifying precision, each one timed to a hacked drone or captured beacon. The goal was simple: take out one of the Empire's orbiting warships. It was insane. It was brilliant. At 3 o'clock GMT, dozens of reprogrammed drones lifted off from scattered jungle bases, snowy forests, and city ruins, each carrying scavenged Giovanni explosives. They ascended through thunderclouds and radiation belts, dodging sensors the way guerrilla fighters dodge searchlights. From orbit, the Empire barely noticed, until the Ardent Spear, the Giovanni command cruiser, took a direct hit to its primary reactor. The explosion lit up Earth's night side. Kazel, watching from the safety of a second cruiser, stared at the flaming debris in disbelief. "Internal malfunction?" he asked. The sensor tech shook his head, trembling. "Negative, Admiral. Multiple strikes. Coordinated. Human-made drones." Kazel said nothing. The bridge fell silent. Somewhere behind him, someone whispered, "They've adapted." Underscore 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 underscore. Back on Earth, cheers erupted from underground bunkers as news spread. The unthinkable had happened. A Giovanni warship, destroyed by humans. Morales and Okoye listened in on a cracked radio as the broadcast repeated. Neither said a word at first. Then Morales chuckled. Looks like they bled for that inch. Okoye grinned. What now? Morales stood and grabbed her rifle. Now we go for the mile. In orbit, Imperial ships began recalculating withdrawal paths. Some junior commanders requested immediate retreat. Kazel denied them. He stayed at Earth through the viewport, jaw clenched. They're just animals, he hissed. Savage, desperate animals. But deep down, for the first time, he wasn't sure. Because the animals were fighting back and winning. The price of underestimation. Admiral Kazel stood in silence on the ruined bridge of the Vigilant Claw, eyes fixed on the blue planet below. Fires still dotted the surface, burning cities, cratered strongholds. But it was no longer submission they saw from Earth. It was defiance. Relentless, organized, burning defiance. Report, he growled. His adjutant, bleeding from a cracked carapace, swallowed hard. Half the fleet has withdrawn. Several cruisers have gone dark. No contact and over a rotation. Earth's forces have. Earth has no forces, Kazel snapped. They have no fleet, no unified army, no central command. They are savages, animals. They can't win. But they are winning, sir, the adjutant said quietly. They are fighting as if the planet itself defends them. Every forest a trap, every city a fortress. They don't fight, Faye. Kazel's claws tightened. That was the problem. The Giovanni trained for dominance through overwhelming force, precision strikes, control. But Earth refused to be controlled. Worse, Earth learned. On the ground, resistance networks moved like ghosts. Cities had been abandoned, yes, but only above ground. Below, the metros, sewer lines, bunkers, and ruins had become an invisible grid of resistance. Morales now led Task Group Red Fang, one of a dozen strike teams built from former soldiers, civilians, hackers, and survivalists. She studied a Giovanni tactical map overlaid with Earth's subway lines. We hit their relay node under the Hudson, she said, marking a point. If we knock out their comms hub, they are blind over North America. Okoye nodded. They won't expect a direct assault. That's why it'll work. It wasn't about meeting the Empire head-on anymore. It was about dismantling them, system by system, node by node, assumption by assumption. The final assault began with thunder. EMP mines crafted from salvaged microwave ovens lit up the sky. Satellites blinked offline. Giovanni drones spiraled out of the sky like broken birds. Then came the second wave, infantry. Human infantry, wearing scavenged armor and wielding hybrid weapons. They weren't the soldiers of old nations. They were the soldiers of Earth. Kazel watched through a feed as human forces overran one of their central bunkers in Peru, using a mixture of captured plasma rifles and old AK-47s. This is collapse, he whispered. No, sir, his adjutant said. This is correction. Kazel turned slowly. You underestimated a death world, the adjutant continued. But worse, you underestimated humans. Their violence, their unity when cornered, their genius for war. Underscore 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 underscore. By day 72, the last Giovanni warship activated emergency warp. Kazel gave the order himself. Above Earth, streaks of white light tore across the sky as the once mighty invasion fleet limped away in disgrace. Months later, in a rebuilt UN chamber, President Okoro addressed the newly reformed Global Council. The Empire's greatest mistake, she said, voice firm, was not invading Earth. It was assuming Earth wouldn't fight back. The Assembly stood and applauded. Not because the war was over, but because humanity had proven something permanent. Earth might be a death world, but it was our death world. And now, The galaxy knew what happened when you dared to threaten it.